Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first Justice and Pieces of 2023. I think it's our fourth season now, so really happy to be back. It's been some time, so just getting used to all the new updates here with Zoom and YouTube. So hopefully it's coming through clear. So really happy today to start, February, new month, new year here. And I know a lot of my students that I've been working with are preparing for the P1 licensing exam. And I have a couple of licensed paralegals and educators who have been doing some tremendous work there in helping paralegal students. So they are both the co-founders of the Lofty Group. So I'll start with you, Daniela. Maybe you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll go over to you, Lachelle.
Great. Thank you, John Paul, for first of all having us on, and to everyone who's watching and who will watch. My name is Daniela, and I've been a paralegal now for just about 10 years and have been involved in the legal industry for about 15. My career has spanned lots of different roles and even different countries. So I've worked here, and I have worked also in Switzerland as a paralegal there in Geneva. And so I would say that we're not limited, even though sometimes we talk about this very limited scope that paralegals have. That's not true. You just need a little bit of imagination, and you can basically do anything that you want. And we can expand on what that means. Not everything that you want, but anyway, there are opportunities. What else can I tell you about me? Right now, I'm working as a sole proprietor of a legal services company. I work exclusively with corporate clients. And right now, I mostly do contract work, so contract review, negotiation, and drafting. And in addition to that, I've also co-founded the Lofty Group, and we'll get more into what that is. But it is just another example of what paralegals can do outside of our scope.
And Lachelle, maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Lachelle Arevalo. You can call me Lachelle Arevalo. No, I'm just kidding. You can call me Lachelle. But yeah, I'm a paralegal. I'm a licensed paralegal and notary public. I'm one half of the Lofty Group. As Daniela said, we both co-founded the Lofty Group. And before becoming a paralegal here in Canada, I worked as a journalist in Manila, Philippines, and Dubai, United Arab Emirates. And I passed the licensing exam in 2018. So it's almost 5 years now since I've been practicing as a licensed paralegal. And like Daniela said, it has been a really good experience because, like she said, there's a lot of opportunities for licensed paralegals that we haven't really touched on, but we will later on at some point in this show. So, we're very glad to be here, and thank you for inviting us, John Paul.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I've spoken to both of you separately, maybe 2-3 years ago. I think back then, actually, Lachelle, you were probably the reason why we started getting more into recording, because I remember you wanted to get a recording of you talking, and then it kind of gave me the idea, well, why aren't we recording all of these? And lo and behold, here we are, and now you're both working together. So thanks for that idea there. So we talked about the Lofty Group, both of you mentioned it. So maybe Danielle, you can start. Tell us sort of where this came from and what are some of the goals of the Lofty Group, and what is it doing for paralegals and paralegal students alike?
Sure. So this idea was sort of, it's been a long time coming, and it has had different, versions of it. In addition to being a paralegal, I've also been an instructor, and I've taught paralegals and law clerks, and I've also taught college level students, communications and other, and even entrepreneurship, those kinds of classes. And along the way, students always have lots of questions, and I love them and I welcome them. And it really came from that. In all honesty, I think that, even if you go to the top school, top paralegal school, and you graduate from the best program, there's always improvements that can be made, right? Nothing is perfect. And the idea around the Lofty Group basically is to provide, you've left school now, but you still need help. I know people will tell you that you can graduate today, take your licensing exam tomorrow, and then on Friday, you can set up your own shop. And I guess in theory you can, but that's pretty scary. And so what we wanted to do is set something up that would help with that. So whether you are a student who needs help getting through your program, whether you are a candidate getting ready for the exam, or you just become licensed and you're not really sure what to do, then we're a resource to help you through all of that. But really the crux of it, besides having all those resources in place, is really the other thing that we wanted to sort of do, and this is really, I guess, like the heart of it, is to elevate the profession. You'll hear lots of things about paralegals and what we can and what we cannot do, and how we present ourselves and how we're viewed by other paralegals, the judiciary, and lawyers as well. And so really what we want to do is provide a platform for paralegals to show themselves off, right? Showcase and say, here we are, this is what we can do. We're smart, we're capable, and this is how we're helping the public.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, JP, when Daniela and I met back in 2017, we met in college, but it's not what you think. She was one of my paralegal instructors. I remember she taught small claims, and she was quite tough, but fair. She was, yeah. So eventually we became friends. I say eventually because you can't really be friends with your teacher. That's just not fair. So yeah, we became friends, and we found out that we actually share a passion for the legal industry and for the paralegal profession in general. So we got to talking, and to be honest, Daniela is one of the very first people who believed in me and in my capabilities as a licensed paralegal. So she really mentored me and guided me onto how to penetrate this industry that we are working in right now. So I wanted that kind of community to expand. So when I was ready and able, I approached her, and then, like said, why don't we come up with this thing that we've been talking about for years now. So she also had that company before called Auxilium. I'm not sure if you remember, JP. And that was where I got my chance to promote myself as a paralegal. So we want to expand that and then also do the same thing for other paralegals, what Daniela has done for me. Now we want to do it together for other paralegals through the Lofty Group.
Right now, with the Lofty Group, I know certainly for my students that are either just finishing their programs and getting ready for the licensing exam. I guess now it's February, so next month. So they're probably a little nervous now that it's about 5 weeks or less away. I know you have some events coming up, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about what resources you have for those who are preparing for the licensing exam, as well as the events that are, I believe it's on today's one's Friday, and so forth for the next few weeks in February.
Daniela, you want to start on this?
Sorry, it was just a technical thing. Sure. So as John Paul mentioned, we do have several events coming up over the whatever 5 weeks left that you have before you write the exam. They're happening every Friday for an hour, and each Friday will focus on a different tip on how to approach the exam and write it. And I'm just going to share something really quickly because it'll make it easier to see what I'm talking about. And just so you have all the information. So I think you can see, yeah. Zoom tells me you can see, so that's awesome. But Zoom doesn't tell me if I can change the page, which is not helpful. Give me one quick second. In any event, if it doesn't, we'll just move on. We don't need this then. It won't let me. So let me just stop sharing for a second. Sorry about that. That's too bad. Anyways, the point is we have, you can go to our website and every week we'll talk about a different way to approach the test, from, for example, tips on how to manage your time. And when we talk about time management, it's not just about the next 5 weeks, how to manage those 5 weeks in studying, but also how to manage your time the day of the test. Right? You have a limited amount of time to answer all these questions. And how do you do that? And there are, some tips and tricks that you can use to get through your questions faster, but still get the right answer. That's important. Another example is we're also going to talk about how to approach the questions. And as you know, by now, all of your questions will be multiple choice. And yes, you read them and choose the best answer, but there's more to it than that. And in particular with this exam, it's not just about reading and checking off the right answer. It's also understanding that you're answering the question that's been asked of you. There's always there are some examples, or some questions rather, that will include all kinds of information that really isn't needed. It's meant to trip you up. So we'll talk also about how to wade through the useless information and focus in on what is really being asked.
Yeah, so to add to what Daniela said, we also have topics with regards to how to organize your study materials, and we're going to give them tips on how to do so because it's important. You go into exam day, you have your materials with you because you can bring in your study materials, as you know. So how do you organize that? I know it sounds simple enough, but there's a strategy in how to organize that so you can find whatever you need to find without wasting any of your limited time. We also have tips on how to prepare for exam day. And also, I think one of the most important things that we're also going to discuss is the mistakes to avoid. So whether it be before the exam, during the exam, and even after the exam. So it's like we mentioned, it's going to be every Friday from March 3rd to February 24th. Now, I think that Danny has a slide that she wants to show you with regards to, she has an example, I believe, about how to tackle an exam question. Danny?
Yep, I do have that. And here are all the topics that we'll be covering with the dates. And you can always visit our website to get more details on those, but I just wanted to share that. And John Paul, if you're ready, we can go ahead and give an example of how to tackle a question. Is that okay? Okay, so we'll just show you here. And we're gonna do a real thing that Lachelle and I did. I did it certainly when I wrote my exam. I know Lachelle did it because I did a prep exam with her at the time when she was getting ready. And I always tell my students to do this. So I'm gonna read the question out loud. And while I'm doing that, Lachelle's actually gonna be timing me. And then we will discuss why that's important. So just give us 1 second. Lachelle, are you ready?
Yes, ready.
Okay. So you are in the closing submissions of a criminal trial for a summary conviction offense. It's a Friday afternoon and the judge keeps looking at her watch. The Crown is making its final arguments. They're pacing back and forth and you wonder if they're as anxious as you are to get started on the weekend. As they make their arguments, you notice that they've not mentioned a binding authority that would be of help to their case. The Crown sits down and the judge asks you to rise to make your closing submissions. What do you do with respect to the binding authority? A, say nothing of the binding authority. This is a Crown disclosure obligation. B, disclose the binding authority since the Superior Court of Justice rules specifically require it. C, under no circumstances can you assist the opposing party in an action. Or D, disclose the binding authority since the paralegal rules require it. Stop timing me. How long did that take me, Lachelle?
So you got 51 seconds left out of the 1 minute and around 43 seconds that I timed you for. And we timed it like that because I think there's a question. Oh, sorry. we timed it as such because you have only 4.5 hours to write 160 questions, and you only have about a minute 50, a minute 45 seconds to answer one question. So now that Daniela has read the question and she has 51 seconds left to think of the answer. So if you're in that situation, you'd have to manage it in a way that your stuff is organized, your study materials is organized. If you don't know the answer to this, you can quickly look through your materials, or it's it's basically it's ethics. So it's up to you how you would answer it. But our tips, the one that we will be discussing at the webinars, will be able to help you in how to answer this. So in 51 seconds, would you be able to answer, Daniela? I mean, we already know the answer.
So before we get there, though, I know that someone offered up an answer, and before I tell them whether or not they're right, one of the things, and this will go, goes to being organized, but also the exam is organized. So you'll know that this question isn't really, it doesn't fall in the category of criminal. It's not under the criminal category. It's not what the question is about. It's under the ethics category. And you'll, as I mentioned before, there's lots of information here, right? It's Friday afternoon. The judge is looking at her watch. Seems like everyone wants to get away for the weekend. But the question is short. What do you do with respect to the binding authority? That's what you need to focus on. Who cares if the judge is looking at their watch? It doesn't matter that the Crown was pacing back and forth. All of that is meant to confuse you, or to add to or make you think of things that really are not relevant. So if we go through, we know none of that stuff is important. The focus here is on the binding authority. And we've mentioned that the Crown has forgotten to mention a binding case. What do I have to do about that, if anything? So if you know your answer and you're all caught up on your paralegal rules, you'll know that the answer, and I hope this works. Of course it doesn't. But anyways, the answer is D. And whoever in the chat offered that up, very good. You're on the right path, and you're obviously well prepared. The answer is D. The rules say that we do have to disclose that to the Crown and say, my friend has forgotten this case, and then bring it up. And it's not good if you don't. There actually could be repercussions for you if you don't. Anyways, we're not here to talk about the ethics or the question, but those are the kinds of things that we'll touch on in our webinars. Really looking at the question, sifting through that extra information, and then in a multiple choice question, if you don't know the answer, how do I eliminate so that I choose the best answer? And that's something else we'll talk about. What does that mean? Am I supposed to choose the correct answer? Correct and the best answer sometimes are not totally it's not clear sometimes the difference between the two, and we'll take you through that. So that's just an example of some of the topics or strategies that we'll take students through to help get prepared for this exam.
Perfect. So let's maybe look at, so that was, I think, the third webinar that's scheduled. So maybe we can look at, you mentioned managing your time, and perhaps Daniela, we can start with you. Maybe you have a tip that that you've shared either with maybe Lachelle way back when she was a student, and then you'll find out if she was paying attention, because then she'll have some other tips to offer up. But what would you say for students in terms of managing your time? I guess both leading up to the exam, right? Because right now, again, tomorrow's Groundhog Day. It's kind of like the movie, right, where you wake up again, like, oh no, I didn't prepare. What am I going to do? It's one less day till the exam. What can you do leading up to the exam in terms of managing your time? And then, of course, as Lachelle pointed out, you have they gave the extra 30 minutes where you don't have a specified break now. But again, if you're going to take, you need some time, 5, 10, however long during the exam, take that break, and then your time is almost 90 seconds a question, right? So what would you say in terms of before the exam, and then of course managing your time during the exam?
Okay, so I'll talk about the leading up to the exam part. Maybe Lachelle, you can take the part about during the exam. Leading up to the exam, it's really important to be kind to yourself. And what I mean by that is often students will put together a study plan, which I encourage, you should, but they will be a little unrealistic with it. So they'll say, I'm going to study 3 hours every day after dinner. The truth is you're not going to. And in addition to just no one will do that, is the fact that we're all human beings with lives. We have responsibilities. Some of us, are going to school and working. Some of us have children. Some of us have pets. Some of us have partners. All of that needs to be factored in when you're putting together your study schedule. And in fact, you should never block off times that are that long. Try doing them in smaller bits. So no more than an hour at a time, then a break, and then you come back to it. Everyone says, and studies have shown that we retain more in smaller bits than one really long study session. So don't leave it to the last minute. Spread your study time out over the next 5 weeks, but be kind to yourself. Give yourself time to rest. And also to allow for the things that you enjoy doing, right? So if you are one of those people that runs every day, then don't not do those things because you need to study. Just maybe adjust so that you can do both. But if you're not kind to yourself and you take away those things that you enjoy doing, studying will become a chore, a huge burden. You won't want to do it. And then you're not retaining the information that you need to retain.
And then Lachelle, what about exam day? How can you manage your time? So we were just, you had that exercise there where you're reading through the question and you have 51 seconds or so to go. And then of course you got to move on to the next question, right? And that takes some time and to decompress and re-go at the next time. So what can you share about time management during the exam?
Well, okay, so even before you sit down and take your exam, you have to travel to the exam location. So to minimize your stress before writing the exam, you'd have to make sure that you know where you're going. So you have to manage your time. You have to be there according to the Law Society, 90 minutes before the exam takes place. You have to be sitting down and writing, ready to write the exam 30 minutes before. So all of that are factors that you have to consider. Now, with regards to how to manage your time while writing the exam, you have to keep in mind that one, your time is limited. Not going to, you're not going to stress yourself out and rush, but you have to make sure that you know your strengths and weaknesses as to how to, let's say, one of the weaknesses I have when I was writing the exam was I can never go past question number 1. And it just stresses me out. So what do? I go to the next question and then it'll just flow. So it's one of those tips that I think is important because we are all different in how we tackle exams or a stressful situation. So another way to manage your time during the exam is also to make sure that everything is not cluttered on your desk. So you get a table, a long table. So you make sure that before writing the exam, you have your pencil ready and you have it's all about organization, to be honest. So those are just one of the tips that we are going to discuss, but many others that I really believe would be beneficial to the people who are going to write the exam. And I just want to quickly point out, because I received a question from LinkedIn from one of the paralegal candidates, whether this webinar that we are going to be presenting are specifically for the paralegal candidates writing for the March exam. So no, this is for any paralegal candidates who would be writing the exam this 2023 to 2024. So our materials are geared towards paralegal candidates who are going to write the exam this season. I mean, this exam season. You know
Okay,
what I mean?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, anytime soon. It's not that suddenly, it turns April Fool's Day, and
Right.
you're the fool for not having signed up in February there.
Right.
So the next one there, I guess it kind of relates. both to what we were talking about in terms of tackling a question initially, as well as time management, is organizing your materials, right? Because you can have all this time and you can spend it, you can have this schedule, but if your materials aren't organized, that ends up costing you even more time in both the preparation side and even on exam day where you're trying to find some information and you're like, well, where is this? So Daniela, maybe we can do it the same way. You can tell us about organizing your materials sort of beforehand, and then Lachelle can talk about how you use those organized materials effectively on the exam.
Sure. So, as everyone knows, you're supposed to take your printed materials into the examination center. You can't bring your laptop and, pull them open on that. So even something as simple as, well, do I bring in all my materials and just have a stack of paper on the table? Do I put them in 3-ring binders? Do I get them bound? There's, those are your personal preferences and options. But what I tell students always is to keep in mind, you, like we said, have a very limited amount of time to answer a question. And so do you want to be flipping through all, I think it's like 900 or almost 900 pages of information? You don't. So something like a 3-ring binder is great because you can flip open and the book or the pages stay flat on the table. Or even if you get them bound, same idea. Once you open the book, it stays flat on the table. And what you can do is include dividers into your notes. So each section, a divider, a tab for your administrative law section, a tab for your criminal section, a tab for your ethics section, and so on. And so that way, exactly, okay, I'm answering some criminal law questions. I'm going to flip to the criminal law tab, and you'll know which tab it is because you'll have prepared your own index page at the beginning of your binder, for example. So that tab 3 is criminal. I'm answering my criminal law section questions. So I'll flip to tab 3, open it up, and there are my resources. So binders and tabs, I think, are the best way to do it. I know some students like duotangs, but again, those are a little bit trickier because once you open them up, they don't lie flat on the table. And then you're fussing. One hand is holding open the book. The other one is trying to fill out the Scantron, and it becomes stressful. I would avoid that. So anything that you can do to have the book flat on the desk with tabs and an index to help you guide yourself through that's the best approach.
Lachelle, do you have any other tips there? Or I guess then, as I said, what about doing all that? How does that help you on the exam itself?
Well, first, adding to what Daniela said, before organizing all the materials, I guess before going to the exam, into the exam day, and then you have to designate a study space for yourself. It doesn't have to be fancy or elaborate. It's just a space for you to organize your thoughts and your materials. So, and to answer your question, how does that help when you're actually already writing the exam? It helps a lot because it helps you stay focused on the question. And if the materials are organized, you can easily flip through it, like Daniela has said. And what also had helped me, and one of the things that we would be discussing at the webinars, is highlighting. So it really depends on whatever it is that your study habits are with regards to the colors that you would be using. But, it's the primary colors for, let's say you highlight statutes, you highlight important dates, important legislation. So, and important cases, and the things that will help you answer a question at such a limited time. Those are the tips that we would be discussing.
And then the last session is on coming up to test day. So I know you've touched on some of them in terms of account for the fact, especially if you're living either really up north or east or even out of town, right, where we take for granted, I guess, all of us in the sort of GTA, that as much as 401 isn't maybe our best friend in the morning. But I mean, there are only, I think, Ottawa, right, is the only other option to write in March. So if you're from Windsor, right, if you're from St. Clair College or something like that, and you want to write the exam, that's like a whole trip in of itself. So anything maybe in terms of preparing for exam day, I think sometimes also people take for granted, like they focus so much on studying and reading, and they don't realize that, hey, it's a long exam. If the day starts early, uh, maybe you're not quite like my 5-year-old that may want to have a little nap or something, but you're a little lethargic come 1 o'clock, and there's still 2 hours to go. So what can you share about getting ready for exam day? And we'll start with you, Daniela.
Sure. So those are really good points that John Paul makes. I think living in Toronto or just outside, we do take that for granted that the test center is close by. So if you are out of town, especially, and if you're able to, and not everyone can do this, but make a trip out of it if you can. Come in the day before, spend the night at a friend's house or a family member's house, or if you can do it, stay in a hotel or something. It allows you some breathing space, right? So if you're in the night before, you can pack your bag that you're going to be taking to the exam, and everything is there. And in the morning, your commute obviously is much shorter because you're already in the city. Now, I understand that not everyone can do that, and that's okay. So if you're coming in the day of and you've come from far, or even if you're in the city, and I think, sometimes students take it for granted the other way, where they think, well, I'm so close by, I don't have to go that early. Yes, you do, because anything can happen. The 401 could all of a sudden be stopped for hours. The TTC could have some issue and the subways aren't running. And even if none of that is true and it's a perfect travel day, getting there right before it starts will add to your stress levels. So if you can, come in the night before or come in early. If you are one of those people that, by the time 1 o'clock hits, you're really feeling it. Maybe you on a normal day would be able to take a nap. That would be lovely, but you can't during the exam. So think ahead. Are you the type of person that needs to have that cup of coffee? Are you the type of person that, needs to have a snack to keep their energy levels up? If you are, and you know that about yourself, that's okay. You can bring those things with you and make sure you've packed them so that at the exam, if it is 1 o'clock and you're feeling a little bit thirsty or you're feeling a little bit hungry, you can reach for those things. And at least that isn't a barrier or an obstacle to you finishing off your exam. And you are allowed to bring those things in.
Yeah, so adding to that, I'm one of those. I'm one of those who would be like lethargic by 1 o'clock, and I would need a cup of coffee. I brought in coffee candies, so I think it helped me. So that's just a tip. It's one of those things that sometimes we take for granted. I just want to add this. It's a story, but then I've told Daniela this for, I don't know, for the nth time she will hear this. But so I brought in water, but it was sparkling water, and I didn't know that. I don't know. I was maybe it. I don't know what had happened, but when I opened it, it just exploded. So that actually took up some of my time because I was in a panic, and I couldn't refocus onto my exam. And I was like calling the proctors, like somebody help me because all the waters was so. Like she said, like Danielle said, anything can happen. Just focus, get yourself get everything together, and just don't panic. It is a stressful time, but hey, see, even that had happened to me, I still passed. So you'll do fine. You'll do fine. Don't be stressed out.
I guess I can kiss Bubbly sponsoring this podcast now that you've come out on the sparkling water here. But certainly, I mean, as well, the other thing is that we touched on is that you don't have like a set break. I think that's kind of new for those who were writing remotely over a couple of years ago, or even I think when the exams were 7 hours or so, you had a break. Everyone took a break at this time. But that's also something to keep in mind, right? Is that you don't have to wait till 2 hours and say, okay, I'm going to take 15 minutes right now. If you're an hour in and you're struggling, I mean, better to sort of refocus then and maybe then power through the rest of the way.
That's right. The only other thing is, remember, if you do take that, or if you need to get up to use the restroom, whatever time you've spent, you don't get that back at the end. So just make sure that if you need a break, that they're not long breaks, because you are then cutting into your exam writing time.
Now, are there any other tips maybe that you can think of, either that you've shared with some of your students or from your own personal experience that maybe we haven't covered? Maybe what's your last tip that we haven't talked about, Daniela, that you want to share with all of the paralegal students approaching their exams, and even the students that are still in school or learning? I mean, that you could apply there as well. But what would you like to share?
I think the other thing that is important, and it depends on the personality of, and yourself better than anyone else, but studying in a group can be really helpful. And some people don't enjoy doing this, and they're like, well, I study a different way. I'd rather do it on my own. And I absolutely understand that. However, I would really suggest getting together with 1 or 2 other people. And it doesn't have to be on a regular basis, but just at some point, because the purpose of that really is to just sort of sit down. And when you hear other people talking or other people asking questions, things that didn't occur to you might come up. And that's really important. You're going to learn from those other students, but they're going to learn from you also. And the other thing that's really important, besides that helps you prepare for your exam, it's also, I find, and students who have done this have told me they find the same thing, that it sort of builds that relationship with these other paralegal candidates who, once they pass the exam, will be your colleagues. And so if you can start building that community beforehand, that's really helpful as you prepare for the test, but also there are benefits that will come your way after the fact. So I'm a big pusher of doing group studying. And then, of course, helping each other out. And if you don't know something, reaching out to some, either an instructor or someone who's written the test, another paralegal, someone that you may know. But there are lots of benefits to studying in a group.
Lachelle, how about you?
Well, for me, I agree with everything that Daniela said, of course. And one of the things that I also did when I was preparing to write the exam was really practice. So I would I would take mock exams and then time myself. And I did that with Daniela, and also by myself. So I just want to mention that we also have that on our website, that we actually have practice questions available, where you can print it. It's printable, it's downloadable, it's digital, and it has the answer key, and it has the answer sheet that you can all print out, time yourself, and then practice, we always say. And then you will get the feel of actually doing the exam. So on exam day, you won't be as nervous. I mean, I wasn't as nervous. I was already familiar with how to write the exam.
Yeah, actually, thanks for bringing that up. I was going to ask, I believe you're also organizing like an opportunity for students to kind of have that feel in doing a mock exam I think it's on the 19th of February. Maybe Daniela can correct me if I'm wrong there and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so you're right. So we've decided to go ahead and host an in-person mock exam. And the idea is to simulate the experience that a student will have on exam day with the Law Society. So we have, the first little bit is signing in and registration and taking away the cell phones and making sure the bags are nowhere near your desks and all of that. And then it's a condensed version. So, it won't last for the full 4.5 hours. It's a 1.5 hour mock exam. You'll sit, you'll bring your materials, you'll answer the questions that we've prepared. And once the hour and a half time is up, we'll collect those and we'll have a break. We'll provide some drinks and some light snacks. While you're off having your break, we'll actually correct or mark the exams and then hand them back. So you get the results right away and you'll know how you did on the practice test. And we'll also sit together as a group and go through some of the questions that we noticed were answered incorrectly, and we'll throw them up on a screen and work through them to show, this is how you should approach such a question, and maybe this is why you got it wrong. And the idea there is, again, like Lachelle said, to eliminate some of the unknown. So if you do it at least that one time, when you get to exam day and you sit down, you know what's awaiting you. And we go as far as we actually have the Scantron cards that look exactly like the ones you'll have at the Law Society, and all of that. So we really try to recreate exam day so that you can practice, so you can have a feel and know what to expect, and with the idea being that it eliminates some of your stress and prepares you.
Michelle, anything more to add there in terms of what's in the pipeline there?
Well, that's basically it. Oh, and the location of the mock exam would be in Richmond Hill at the Richmond Hill Central Library. If you visit our website, theloftygroupinc.com, there would be an events page there, and you can clearly see when the mock exam will be, the location and the time. So it's going to be from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. On February 19th, and there's free parking. So you don't have to even worry about that. There's free ample parking.
Perfect. So maybe Daniela, if you can sort of give us the final rundown on all the resources there that are available for, I know, or you can maybe put that, hopefully the technology allows for it, but maybe give us one final glimpse of what's coming ahead. I know February the 3rd, right, on Friday at 4 o'clock is the first one, and that way anyone that is listening, and thanks again also for sharing the website where they can go and register and everything.
Right. So we have a slew of different resources. So as John Paul mentioned, we've been talking about these webinars that are happening for the next 5 Fridays. We've got the practice questions available through our website as well that you can, like Lachelle mentioned, download with an answer key and a Scantron sheet, so you can really practice and get a feel for what it'll be like on exam day. We also have the mock exam that I just talked about on February 19th. And then you have us as well. We're always happy to answer questions. And so if you need to email us or reach out through LinkedIn, don't be shy. You can connect with us. We always like to add to our network. The Lofty Group also has a page on LinkedIn, and we do post tips there as well. And that's really the focus right now, because we know the exams are coming up and people are a little anxious about writing it. So there's lots of information there as well. But don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to us through, social media, our email, which is hello@theloftygroupinc.com, and one of us will get back to you fairly quickly.
And Lachelle, maybe you can give us, rather than maybe repeat some of that, but what else besides the preparation for paralegal licensing exam, some of the other things that you have on the go with the Lofty Group, or plans for the near future and beyond? And again, maybe give the website one more time.
Sure. So, like Daniela said, because the paralegal licensing exam is coming up soon, that's one of the main focus of our activities and programs. But we do also have other things in the pipeline, such as we just launched our advice column called Ask Danny. So whatever questions paralegal candidates, paralegals can have, they can just email us at hello at the Lofty Group. Oh, there you go. Yay. It's up. So that's our email address right there. And that's our website. And like Daniela said, you can reach us at any time. You find us on LinkedIn or Facebook. Don't be shy. We're very friendly. And also another thing on the pipeline is the bencher elections 2023. Just very quickly, we are doing a coverage of it. So if you're interested to know more about it, just visit our website, click on our blog, and all the articles that we've written are all there.
Sounds good. So here it is one more time. Last question there for both of you. Now, I don't know if it's changed. I don't know if actually we have recordings from the last time you came by, if I recall. I think, well, for sure, Lachelle, I have yours. But the last question I usually ask is any final words of advice, either for the paralegal candidates writing the licensing exam, as well as any paralegal students or newly licensed paralegals that may be listening. We'll start with you, Daniela, and then we'll give Lachelle the last word.
Sure. So I always tell everyone that, you can't approach anything you do really, but especially this career, totally on your own. It's really important that you build a community around you so that you can learn and be able to grow, whether you decide to open up your own practice, which is an option, or you're just not sure and you wonder what all the different opportunities are. You can't do that on your own. So, be sure to connect with people. I know that we tend to do things electronically through social media, and that's fine as a starting point, but really make an effort to get out there. So if you find, a networking event or a CPD class that's being offered in person, I suggest going in person if you can, so that you meet people face to face. It's very different to be face to face with someone and have a conversation versus sending out, a generic message through some social media outlet. And so I'm a big fan of that. And if you do choose to go the social media route, and that's totally okay, connecting is one thing. So clicking on the, follow and being part of my network, for example, is great. But the people that stand out to me and who I remember are those that then follow up with a message. And I always find that helpful. And I try to do the same in return. I don't always get it right, I will admit, but I certainly make the effort because that's how, you remember people like that who reached out to you, who made the effort, who, raised their hand and said, hey, I'm here and I want to participate, or I'm looking for an opportunity. And, and Lachelle can correct me if I'm wrong or tell you if I'm lying, but on more than one occasion, I have helped people connect people with a new opportunity. And I often keep track of, and I mean literally in a little notebook I have, of who has reached out and when and what they want, what they're looking for. So don't be shy to raise your hand. Make sure you do, and connect any which way that you can all the time. I do it myself, and I'm just a big fan. I really am.
And Lachelle, any advice that you have for us?
So, I remember when I was studying to become a paralegal, and I didn't know what would happen after, because you hear a lot of stories from, I guess, other paralegals, other students. And I think just focus on you, like eliminate the noise, focus on you and what you want and what you want to do. And it will guide you towards what you need to do. Be assertive. Aside from knowing what you want, be assertive. Like Daniela said, raise your hand. Don't be shy. This is your profession. This is how you earn a living. You should be able to advocate for yourself. I guess that's it. And know your worth. Know your worth. And of course, also you should know what you're talking about. You cannot always just wing it, right? So I guess that's it. It's very simple, and you just follow and focus on you, on yourself.
Perfect. So thank you both for joining us again here and sharing all that wonderful bits of advice. And again, for anyone listening and you want to connect with them, reach out to them on LinkedIn. There's events coming up, there's other resources, and again, there's things beyond just the licensing exam to prep for. So thanks again, Daniela and Lachelle, and again, for everyone else, we're going to continue on with this theme there.
Yeah.
Again, as they pointed out, the exam is coming up next month, and we have Christina De Palma joining us as well to share some more tips tomorrow.
Sure, can I have a question? Can I ask the question? This is
Yes,
Gina.
Gina.
Have a great evening, and thank you for having a free information, and I'm very excited. So my question is, do I need to submit any requirements in order for me to get that free mock exam? Or I just email you to the
just
email
go
that
on.
you give?
Yeah, just go onto our website. All the information is there. If you go to the website and click on events, and all the details for each one of the sessions is there.
Is it in the Facebook, right?
No,
I'm following it.
No, on the website. So if you go
Yeah.
to the loftygroupinc.com online,
Okay.
you'll see all the information there. And if you can't find it, you can find us on LinkedIn and we'll help you find it.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm
no
so
problem.
excited. Ma'am Liz, and hi, I'm also from the Philippines. Thank you.
Perfect. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks again, and thanks for your question, Gina.
Thank you, John Paul, for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, John Paul. Until next time.